Okay, there we go. Well, welcome, folks, to Streaming Church TV. This is our live video blog. My name is Phil Thompson. It's good to have you here with us. I am drinking tea tonight because I've got a head cold. And if my voice goes out, then so be it. You'll probably be happy about that. But as usual, we do this every Thursday night. Steve Lacey is behind the camera tonight. And we work for Streaming Church TV, but we're over here at Rock and Java Coffee Shop here in Tucson, Arizona, on the northwest side of Tucson. And this also happens to be a venue of a live church. And in the back here, a live church has services on the weekends. But there's a coffee shop here, and if you hear grinding noises and cups clanging and fist fights going on, it's just because people are having a good time here. But we are glad, seriously, we're glad to have you here. And most of the time on this particular thing that we do here, we talk about streaming video stuff. We talk about technology. We talk about innovation. We talk about things that churches or ministries or even small businesses, how they can use streaming video and that kind of stuff. But we're going to change up things a little bit here tonight, and we're going to talk with a pastor friend of mine here. His name is Bo Willett, and Bo has written a book. It's called Porn and the Pastor, and we want to talk a little bit tonight about pornography and about people involved in ministry and how that has been a real temptation and a real addiction to many people all over the world, for that matter, let alone people involved in ministry. And so here's the deal. If you have questions about this topic, you feel free to type them on in here in the chat box here. You can be anonymous, but we do encourage you to ask some questions, and you can contact us as well. In fact, we're going to archive this as well, so you can watch it later. You can tell folks about it later. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But first of all, let me introduce Bo Willett. Bo is a executive pastor at Calvary Christian Fellowship here in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah, hey, Phil.
And you and I are old buddies. We go back to the 90s. And,
with long hair. I remember this guy with long hair. Yeah.
I actually do have hair. It's just I don't have as much of it now.
You had a lot of it.
I did have some of it. So, well, Bo, sure. Thank you so much for coming down here.
Thanks a lot for letting me in. This is a beautiful place. I mean, it's just an incredible facility. It's awesome.
Yeah, it really is great. Rock and Java. So come down and check it out. Okay, you wrote a book.
Yes, I did.
Recently called Porn and the Pastor. Porn and a Pastor.
Yep.
Let me just start off. You are involved in ministry. You do a lot of things. You're a musician.
Yep.
Why would you want to write a book about porn?
Well, I think I started off the book by saying, let me just look at it real quick. But it says, why should a pastor want to write about porn? Let's just say that most passions start quite young in the heart of a little lad, and I'm no exception.
Okay.
And porn has always been a part of my life. I was raised in the San Fernando Valley, and if anybody knows anything about the porn industry, San Fernando Valley is a big hub of it.
Right.
And I was born in Encino. I went to college at Cal State University Northridge in the Valley. I lived most of my junior high and high school years actually just over Chatsworth, just over the hill into a place called Simi Valley. And for all my Simi Valley friends, I want to say hi. They might be listening through Facebook, so I hope you are. And a little plug there. But, growing up in that environment, I don't think any of us thought it really odd, especially for us who didn't have a really Judeo-Christian home environment. We certainly didn't think it odd to think of the porn industry as an avenue of occupation, as really a stepping stone into maybe Universal Studios, which was obviously the big studio there, and Disneyland and all the things you can do there. It seemed like pornography was just that avenue to kind of get your feet wet, get in there. It was just over the hill. It seemed like from our lives that it was just permeated in the culture. It was part of it. There was nothing wrong with it. It was very normal, so okay. I think coming from that background and then also having my own struggles with it, especially becoming a minister. And I mean, one of the faux pas in ministry, I think, is divorce and sexual immorality. I mean, that's right up there. And and having this issue in my life that always just was bugging me, okay. That it made me really want to do some more research on the topic, obviously, And I started writing. I didn't plan to write the book, Phil. I really didn't. It was just a natural development of a lot of journaling and a lot of writing and research, and it got so big that someone said, hey, you might want to submit that to someone, and I did, and I had 2 people want to publish the book. So I figured, hey, the door's open here. I'm gonna go with it.
Okay. Well, now I've looked through the book. I haven't read it cover to cover, but I've looked through a lot of it.
Yeah.
You got a lot of information, a lot of stats in here about pornography. Years ago, it used to be if you wanted pornography, you would sneak into some place in your town, some dark corner. You would, sneak in and and make sure nobody saw you. But now, of course, we have what we're doing right now. Yeah. We're on the internet.
Yeah.
How's the internet? I mean, obviously, it's just for pornography. It's just been a huge explosion of profit.
Yeah, and the pornography industry is a good business in the sense of it's a good money-making business. Whenever you have a business that worldwide is generating $97 billion,
wow,
and which is so large of a figure, and in the United States it generates roughly around 12, it can estimate around 10 to around $13 billion a year. You have to look at that industry and say, how are they marketing their product? And if you look at, even if you go way back in technology from the dinosaur days of the battle between a VHS tape and a beta tape, and then you study how the porn industry played a part in basically doing away with beta and moving towards VHS, which really, in a sense, all the companies went, okay, this is the direction they're going. They produce so many films, so much more than Hollywood. They've always just been on that cutting edge of trying to get their stuff out, and they've had to be creative about it. Hence why...
So they're good business people.
Incredible. And that's one of the reasons why pornography as an industry, just stays going. How could anybody remove $12 billion annually from a country's
gross national product.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things in the book you mentioned is it's not just all America that's farming all this stuff out on the internet.
No.
You were even talking about how China, even though it bans pornography, there's porn coming out of China, right?
That's right. They export, porn paraphernalia. So even though they're getting, they have this ban on it, which obviously there's B movies and there's a lot of porn in China. Don't get me wrong. But as far as the government does have a ban on it, they do push it out and export it to us, to other countries, and make $25 billion annually. They're the top producers, not of film, but of just the amount of money that they generate from the industry and all of its various
this would be
parts.
like sex toys?
Sex toys, things like that. Even when I was looking at Pakistan and some of the more Muslim countries, you could see how these little gadgets are really why they're going off the shelf so fast in those countries. It's because of the amount of porn that people want to view. This is a way that people can look at porn in a private way. They can go into their little corners, they can view it, because they have such a hold, such a strain, or I don't want to say oppression, but it's just, there's a real law. You can't just go view it and you can't just go buy it.
Right.
In places like Iran, there is capital punishment for adultery. So,
wow.
These little gadgets, so when you think of it this way, I always, when you think of cell phone sales in those countries, you have to think why they're selling, and it's because of the pursuit of false pleasure. People are so bound by the pursuit of false pleasure that's the reasons why these things are selling. So when you're investing in T-Mobile, when you're investing your money in Nokia, when we're doing that, it's kind of an interesting situation, but some of the money that's being made is because of, obviously porn.
All right, well, we know it's a worldwide deal,
right?
Especially with the internet. Now let's kind of bring it in here a little bit, because we're talking about the internet and stuff, and we're talking about people primarily involved in ministry.
Yeah.
There's a ton of people involved in church work, ministry, that have addictions to porn.
Yeah, a lot of people.
a lot of people do. So what's the answer for them? I mean, I know there's probably no quick answer, but you part of what you do is you do talk to people
Absolutely.
from other churches.
Yeah.
How does it walk me through the process of getting somebody free from addiction?
Yeah, the first thing I always want to tell someone about is, what's your motivation for change? Why do you want to get out of pornography? We know that it's a passing pleasure, and that's why I call it a false pleasure, an unsatisfying pleasure. But why you want to get out of it is going to really tell the tale of if you're going to or not. And most people have very noble reasons why. Their family, their wife. They love their wife. They are afraid to lose their job. They're afraid of their reputation. A lot of pastors are just gripped in fear.
Well, yeah, because that's how you earn a living, and so if you get caught or word gets out,
what happens?
Fired.
That's right, and there's that fear there. But there's only one, I think, biblical proper motivation, and I find it in Psalm 115:1, where it says, "Not unto us, but to your name be the glory." And I see it also in 1 Corinthians 10:31 that says, "Whether we eat or drink, do to the glory of God." That if your motivation isn't to glorify God, I want to be free from this because I want your name to be glorified. See, it's only at that place when your heart is changed and when you want the glory of God and you're asking and seeking God and saying, God, let me seek your glory alone, that you'll do the rest that's needed. Because there is a lot of things needed that we all know about. I mean, a famous book, To Every Man's Battle, speaks of that, that a lot of things that are needed, when it comes to the issues of struggling with pornography, like cutting off things, what we call spiritual amputation, to cut off sin.
It's kind of scary when you're talking there, amputation.
Actually a cutting off of. And I always try to put it into a positive, and hence why I always use the word better pleasure. That you're always moving towards better pleasure when you're moving in the grace of amputation or the grace of right motivation or the grace of repentance or these type of things. So the first thing I would say is, are you seeking the Lord for the right motivation to get out of this?
Okay. Folks, if you just joined us, we're talking with Bo Willett from Calvary Christian Church here in Tucson, Arizona. Bo has a website also by, not only can you go to Calvary's website, but you can go to his website called runninglight.org. In fact, down below the chat here, you'll see what looks like a VHS video. That's actually his book there. You can click on that link.
It is a book.
And it is a book, yeah. And you can click on that link and find out more about that. We'll talk about how people can get your book in a second here. There's also some other links that we'll get to in a moment. So, all right. So, what you're saying is, if you want to get free from your addiction to porn, you're saying the first thing you should do, and a lot of people have, okay. And if we have time, I want to clarify something, but let's go on this. Okay, you're addicted to porn. You want to get out of it, but you're saying you shouldn't try to get out of it just because you want to keep your job or you want to just improve your relationship with your wife. You're saying the number one motivation you should have is to glorify God.
That's right.
If you don't have that first and foremost, you're not going to be very successful.
That's right.
In doing that.
Absolutely, and it's not really me that says that. It's what the Word of God, I believe, strongly teaches. That is the right motivation for change. And then from there, there's plenty of other things to do, but that's got to be there.
All right, so that's the first thing. So obviously there are some software things that you can possibly... one of them I put on here was besecure.com. There's a link down there. You can look down here on our platform called besecure.com, which is software. It's recommended by the folks that Focus on the Family. Another one, which I think you recommend, is called Covenant Eyes. And there's a link down there for Covenant Eyes. But Covenant Eyes is not really, it's more than just the software, isn't it?
It's more, I think Covenant Eyes is more of an accountability kind of partnership. So it is a filter system, but it really stresses the accountability, which we believe is a grace of God. That when you have right motivation, you will move in the graces of God, and one of them is accountability. You will go, it doesn't matter, you're so into doing things for the glory of God, you will find accountability. Covenant Eyes is great.
So again, your motivation is going to be glorifying God. Because I know a lot of guys that try to be accountable and say they're accountable, whether it's pornography or spending money or whatever it might be, and they kind of cheat a little bit there, get around some of that.
And it comes to another issue too, and that is, God's gifts and God's graces are better pleasure than porn. Okay. And unless I understand that, then I'll always go back to the false well of drinking from porn. Unless I understand that God's ways are greater pleasure. And the way I try to help people understand this with porn is to understand that women in this ministry, and this might segment into a different topic, but women in this industry, have finally kind of caught wind to the situation that there's a lot of money in this industry. That's a lucrative business. And so a lot of them, what they've done is they've gotten so sick of men because of the abuse that they've faced by men in the industry, because there's tremendous amount of abuse. And I hate to be graphic, and I won't be too graphic, but after they...
It's the internet. You can be as graphic as you want.
Okay. That's right.
I'm just kidding.
That's right. But after they do film in the porn industry, I mean, women throw up. Women are, having to take massive amounts of drugs to be able to do what they do. They have to go see a doctor. Most of the people in porn have sexually transmitted diseases. So women are ripped up, they're grossed out. And what they do is they've finally, in a sense, got worldly wise to it and said, hey, these men are making a ton of dough. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to start our own porn industry. Our own company, that is. And so, you have now women that are producers, you have women that are marketers, you have women that are lobbyists for the industry.
You have women that are addicted to porn, too.
You have women, it says from the stats, it says 1 out of 3 viewers are women to the 4 million web pages out there of porn. So it's no longer every man's battle. And I think the church has to come to an understanding of this, that the roles of a woman have changed in our culture, and women are much looked upon like people look upon a man, that whatever is physically pleasurable for a moment is beneficial, even though we know that that's not true, that over time you're going to end up into bondage that way. We look at women that way nowadays too, and so
that's a good point.
Yeah.
In case you just joined us, if you have a question for Bo, has written a book here called Porn and a Pastor. You can type in your question in the chat box here. If this is live, obviously, right now, that's why we're over here at Rockin' Java and just here drinking tea. They got great coffee, too. But if you want to watch this, or maybe this is archived, it will be archived. So if you have a question, even though you might be watching it another day or so, the links to contact Bo will be off there. But you can always contact us here at StreamingChurch.tv. And that contact link will always be on there. So if you ever have a question for Bo, we can pass it on to him if you're watching this at a later date, which many people will be. Okay, so...
I forgot to tell you something.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you that we recommend Safe Eyes very strongly.
Safe Eyes?
Safe Eyes, yeah.
Safe Eyes, okay.
You can go to safeeyes.com.
Okay.
For the amount you have to pay, which is like $70 for the software, it is downright the best.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's awesome. Because it won't block out just the whole page. It'll block off just a banner. It'll take out just an ad. And so if you're going somewhere, it's not going to just cut you off of everything. It's going to be very specific.
All right. So now let's talk a little. You mentioned about how the church church in general needs to learn how to deal with all this stuff. But let's talk a little bit about the church in general when it comes to dealing with people that are addicted, leaders, ministers, or just the average Joe. I mean, what I have seen over the years have been churches have traditionally been pretty hard on people. Now, not all churches have been that way, but a number of them have been. How do you suggest a church deal with a pastor that may be dealing with an addiction to the pornography? What's your suggestion to that?
Well, I tell you, I'll just speak from my own testimony, and that's going to be the most powerful thing that I can do, because I was a guy who struggled with this off and on for I've been in ministry 16, 17 years, and I would say I went to my senior pastor probably 11 years or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and I sat down with him, and I said, hey, this is an area that I struggle in. Just I need you to know, and it's not that it's it's not like it's all the time, but it's something that gets me, which is that's a lot of people's situation, and. I tell you the grace that he showed me, and there's different scenarios, and I understand ministers have to deal in different ways in different scenarios. If you walk into your office, the church staff office, and someone's viewing pornography in the church office, a pastor, and he hasn't confessed anything, and you've caught him in it, and you're another minister, well, that's a real drag. I mean, here you have a minister who hasn't confessed it at all. But if you have a minister who's coming out, and that's what really I'm trying to help these ministers see, is to bring it into the light, to be able to come. But the right way to say it is, hey, everybody sins, and there's faux pas, no doubt, in the church, overeating. Now I don't see too many ministers going up to all the overweight people in the church and going through Matthew. Going through the church discipline found in Matthew chapter 18, is it? Where you go confront your brother and then bring 2 or 3 witnesses and then take it to the church. You do not see that happening, though someone is very much struggling with a bondage. Someone in the ministry, obviously, to much is given, much is required. There needs to be some kind of discipline, and that discipline is an act of God's grace in our lives, But we should treat those people, and I think pastors that come and confess these things to other ministers, man, you have to look at it as, King David struggled mightily, Solomon struggled mightily, Abraham struggled mightily, Judah struggled mightily. He went into, incest. And it says he went to the front of the city, the gate of the city, to get a prostitute as if it was nothing. Israel fell. Their fall was a sexual immorality fall. They went into the women of the Moabites. Peter denied Christ 3 times. If your pastor's coming to you and confessing this, he's confessed his sin. That's a moving grace. God's working in his life, in his heart. Okay. Give him an environment to be built up and restored and moving forward.
So try to create some way to restore him instead of just hitting him with a hammer.
Absolutely not. I mean, like I said, it's kind of hypocritical when you maybe hit someone in that hard, which happens, unfortunately, Phil, so much. Where it's just it's not right. I don't think it's biblically right.
You mentioned some things in the Bible. Let me ask you just a direct question: Is there porn in the Bible?
Yeah, there's a lot of porn in the Bible, and I've always heard it from our pastor, but I think it's a quote maybe from C.S. Lewis that says, if you're not ready for books written by adults, don't read the Bible. And the Bible is filled with porn. When I was a child, when I was 16 years old, never read the Bible, started reading from the book of Genesis, got to the story of Onan, and I think it's Genesis, I want to say 38, 39 area. And it said he spilled his semen on the ground. And when I read that, I went to school the next day. I was a senior, went to school the next day and just told every Christian I knew what was in the Bible. Now, none of them knew it was in the Bible. And it kind of was my first lesson that most Christians, young Christians, just don't read the Bible.
Right.
But you read Ezekiel. I mean, you just go throughout the characters in the Word of God, and there's not many that haven't struggled with the issues of false pleasure, sexual pleasure, that God has not, it's a distortion of God's truth. Obviously, I think the greatest examples are found in Ezekiel, where it says they looked at the pictures on the wall and they lusted for their lovers and they went after them. And that's very much like a porn addict, going from image to image. And then, obviously, Solomon. I mean, man, if there's anybody in the Bible that you look at and you just go, how did this guy get in the kingdom?
Well,
I mean, how is this guy in?
So how would you define pornography?
I would define it, I have a broad way of defining it. Anything that is a distortion of God's intent in sexual relations. Anything that's a distortion of that.
Okay.
Meaning God had an intent in His creation for a man and a woman, and to be absolutely pleasurable together. And the Bible insists that.
Because when we're talking about issues of porn here, we're not against sex.
No.
Right? You're not against sex, right?
Well, the Bible says to partake of the wife of your youth, to have joy with her. I mean, we have a whole book of the Bible, the Song of Solomon, that is just about intimacy.
Exactly.
So
now, would you say that's pornographic? Would you call the Song of Solomon pornographic?
No, because it's between a man and a woman.
It's in the right context.
Yeah, it's in the right context. And the Bible says in the book of Hebrews, keep the marriage bed honorable. What happens in my marriage bed should be the most pleasure experience I've ever felt. It points me to my God. My God is one. The Father is one with the Son, and they have incredible relation together. And to have an incredible relation with my wife just points me to God. It should be an act of worship before the Lord. It should be utmost pleasure, because God's gifts are pleasurable. He's a pleasurable God. I think of Psalm 115:3. It says God sits in the heaven and does whatever pleases Him. God is pleasured.
Right.
And so Christians of all people should have incredible passion. If you're not having incredible passion in your marriage, then something's not right.
Right.
And it doesn't have to just be, intercourse, or it can be passion in other wonderful, intimate ways. Because some people can't. And that doesn't mean that they're non-glorifying, but they should be able to experience incredible, passionate joy in one another, just as God experiences joy in me, and I experience joy in Him.
Okay, we've got a couple minutes.
Yeah, that's a lot right there.
I know, it is. We need to have you back on here. Talking with Bo Oled here. And again, there are links down below this chat that you can click on. Information on software for your computer, as well as Covenant Eyes, as well as information on Bo's book here, which you can get.
Read it.
Yeah, exactly. It is good reading. I haven't read it all the way through yet, but I've read a lot of it. What do you think about fetishes? Would you classify fetishes as pornography, or is it in that realm?
Yeah, I think it is. I think fetishes are, if just you're taking the idea of certain sexual delights, as fetishes, that definitely can be in the realm of pornography, a distortion. And how things become distortions are when they are predicated based on my porn lust. Meaning most of us gather fetishes, and I've been at marriage conferences where someone will raise their hand and say, hey, can I do this with my wife? And the next question is, well, where did you get that idea? And someone will say, oh, well, it was from
a porn flick.
Yeah, it was from porn, And that's where I would say that's a distortion. When you start grabbing things from the well that is empty, and these women are empty, and these men are empty, and when you gather that and you say that is what's going to satisfy, then that's never going to satisfy. Those things are, in a sense, passing away. The pleasure of God, everything you do in your marriage with your spouse has to be a pursuit of her joy to glorify God. My joy is in the pursuit of her joy. So I would ask my wife, hey, is there anything you would like me to do? Is there anything, and if she's like, hey, this is what I like, and and you are in agreement with it, and it's in the confines of your bed, that's honorable, that's a sanctified place, that's set apart from everything else, which marriage is all about, that sanctification, then hey, right on. I just don't need to know about it. You don't need to tell me, and I don't need to tell you. Actually, I was
going to explain, but all right, we won't get into that. Okay, got about a minute left here. Yeah. Running Light Ministries. What's Running Light Ministries?
Running Light Ministries is taken from Hebrews 12, and it basically, verse 1 and 2, just says, throw out the weight that encumbers us, that ensnares us. And so, in a sense, we're just trying to get people to see, to run light. Let's throw off this weight. This weight is encumbering the church.
Okay.
And in a sense, because it encumbers the church, meaning we have churches that are filled, 50% of people in the congregations struggle with porn. And yet there's not much ministry that's going out, there's not much coming into the light with this issue. So Running Light is basically trying to get people to know about it, to know about the issue, to give them resources that they can get involved in Bible studies online and have online accountability and mentorship. through a online pro Bible study and find freedom.
Okay. We're about out of time here. If you need to get a hold of Bo, you can just contact us at streamingchurch.tv. We'll have this on archived, but the links probably, if it goes way out, the links will be gone. But you can always contact Bo through us, and we'll get you his information as well. Or you can do it, if you're watching live right now, you can contact that information below there. So, Bo, I sure appreciate you coming down here, man.
Thanks a lot, man.
It's a pleasure.
That was a blast.
It's always good to see you again. And again, Bo's book is called Porn and a Pastor. And again, you can contact him for it. Also, Tate Publishing.
You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon. All the, just get online, go to Amazon or whatever, and shop for it.
All right, we're out of time. I'm Phil Thompson for Steve Lacey and all of us here at Rock and Java Coffee Shop and Streaming Church TV. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Thursday night here. Have a great evening and a great week. We love you.